Okay, thank you, everybody. I think it's time to get going. My name's Rick McCutcheon. I'm a Dynamics 365 MVP, and I'm working with EasyTerritory on this educational webinar series around Dynamics 365 and geospatial mapping. And if you joined us for our first session, it was very exciting, and it's available on the website, as well as we've got our third session. Today's session is going to be around using EasyTerritory with field service. The next one is going to be really focused on retail, and that should be some very exciting information for you there as well. So that's on Tuesday, April the 2nd, and the previous recording, as I said, is on the website. So today we're going to look at an introduction to EasyTerritory for those who haven't seen the product before. And I've got to say that over the last few months working with Benton, I really thought I had a good understanding of these mapping technologies and what we could do with Dynamics 365. But I've almost brought it up to a new level of understanding, and I'm very impressed with the potential ROI in many areas, and the workloads that this product takes on is very impressive. We were going through it earlier today, and I think you're going to see some really neat things that EasyTerritory can do around field service. So that'll be part of that demo. And then at the end, we're going to have an interactive Q&A. So save up your questions. If you have a question during the session, please just type it into the box, the question box. And if I can bring it up during the session, I'll get Benton to answer it then. So Benton, I'd like to kind of turn it over to you at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Thanks for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Benton Belcher calling you today from sunny Tallahassee, Florida, and hope everybody's having a great day so far. Just wanted to first put my contact information out there. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do that. And as Rick mentioned, he's going to be just probably asking me some questions as we go along. And if you have any questions that I could answer while we're going through the presentation, feel free to chat them to Rick, and we'll field those as we go along. But excited to talk to you today about how EasyTerritory integrates with Dynamics 365 for field service. So on the last call, or the last webinar, the first one in the series, we talked a little bit about how EasyTerritory got started, and we focused on one of our customers, which was Five Guys Burgers and Fries. So they were our very first customer. They essentially hired us to help them map their store locations, as well as build a tool for them to be able to manage their franchise boundaries on an interactive map. So that meant being able to draw franchises by manually drawing shapes, or franchises by selecting geographies like county boundaries or zip codes. And since that first implementation for Five Guys, we've really expanded into a lot of different areas where mapping would be used with companies. And particularly one that is an emerging market right now is in the world of field service. So just wanted to start by talking to you about some of the types of companies that would use territory mapping and routing software for their organization in the field service scenario. One of the first ones that comes to mind are floor mat and uniform rental services. Second is furniture delivery and repair. The third is commercial HVAC and security, commercial printer and plotter service and repair, medical service and repair. So as you probably noticed driving around your city, that there's lots of trucks out there that have technicians that have parts on the truck and tools on the truck to go out and fix or repair different types of equipment or devices. And so one of the things to think about when looking at field service and mapping and all of that is that it really has to be a company that has a lot of size and a lot of it's really where the geospatial aspect will plot all of those device locations or all of those customer locations, as well as be able to plot your warehouse locations, real time, where are my drivers, where are my technicians on the map. So being able to pull all that together in an interactive map is something that's very essential to field service planning and routing. And so I think you'll be seeing some highlights of that today. So really quickly, to benefit some of the overall, recap the benefits of EasyTerritory for Dynamics. On the last webinar, we talked about Dynamics for sales and being able to do and perform sales, territory management and analysis, to be able to do bulk territory realignment and territory reassignment in Dynamics, as well as performing lead assignment, sales call and trip planning, as well as mobile mapping. So today we're going to focus on some of the ways that it would be used with Dynamics for field service, which includes call center operations, service territory management, zip code management. So for organizations that are building and managing their zip codes or their service territories by zip code, how they would do that on an interactive map, as well as work order assignment and ultimately capacity planning. So being able to look at historic data on a map and then determine, based on the volume of work orders we've had or cases we've had in an area, what would be the requirements for future resource allocation in those areas. And then finally, this will be covered on the third webinar, is Dynamics for marketing and retail, and doing just basic geospatial analysis and marketing list creation. So the EasyTerritory application, it is a web application. It's an Azure app that would be hosted either in Azure, or we have an installer for it, and it would be installed on a server or virtual machine that an organization manages and maintains. We do have managed solutions for Dynamics going all the way back to 2011, all the way to current. Those managed solutions are really the hooks to push and pull data into the EasyTerritory application. And I'll try to make a note of when I'm working in Dynamics versus when I'm in EasyTerritory today. And again, we support either Dynamics Online or on premises. In addition to the EasyTerritory application, we also leverage an underlying base map for all the street network and water body data that you would see on the map, and also the geocoding and the routing. And so the two options that we have for base maps are Microsoft's Bing Maps platform and Microsoft's new Azure Maps platform. If you're not familiar with Azure Maps, you should definitely check it out. Azure Maps is a new platform that leverages TomTom for the underlying base map data, has a really fast geocoder and really accurate geocoder as well. As far as authentication goes with EasyTerritory, we do support Azure Active Directory and single sign-on providers that support OpenID Connect. All right. So to jump into some of the use cases in which EasyTerritory would be used, I'm going to start with the call center operations. So where you might have a call center that has dispatch operators working. And this is just an example of showing a situational map on the big screens in a call center. So some important things there are being able to see a view of everything or drill down into a specific area to see alerts and to also see thematic maps on the wall. The other thing that is a nice benefit to having EasyTerritory connected to Dynamics is the ability to use it to have a bigger map of all of the data that you're working with in Dynamics. So for example, in this dual screen example, we have the EasyTerritory map on the left-hand side and then the field service schedule board on the right-hand side. So being able to use these two in conjunction really will give you a more holistic view of everything that's going on in your map. So next, I'm going to transition into a demo, and this is just an extension of the last demo that we were doing, where I'm an auto parts distributor called Revolution Auto Parts. So our company in this demo, we sell auto parts in bulk to dealers. So you can think of a dealer like a an auto body repair shop or a mechanic. And so we'll be fulfilling service orders for new battery bulk orders or for oil can restocking. And as I transition here, Rick, if you've got anything that you'd like to interject or add here, certainly would welcome anything. All right. So one of the first things that I want to cover is just some high level how EasyTerritory maps data from dynamics. So this was covered in the first webinar, but at a very high level, just to explain, we support the ability to build advanced find views from any entity in Dynamics that has address information and a latitude and longitude. So that means that you can easily map data from any entity, anywhere from accounts to cases to work orders to contacts or leads, any of those types of entities that have address information you can map. So just as a quick example, I'll just show you how you can map and load in account data from Dynamics straight into EasyTerritory. So here we can just create an advanced find view. And in my advanced find view, I have several columns that I want to pull in. And we just click Map Records, and that will launch the EasyTerritory application and load the data. So the data is being loaded through a fetch XML call. So EasyTerritory doesn't actually store any data from Dynamics. It's just really presenting it here as a visual that you can interact with. So just to explain the layout of the application, on our left-hand side, we have a layer legend list where our different layers are coming into. So for example, I have my account layer that I just mapped from Dynamics. And then I have a toolbar that has several buttons for doing different types of drawing and selection of my data. So for example, I can use the drawing tool to lasso an area and pull those results up in my results grid. You can also use the tool to color code the data by some of the columns that you're bringing over from Dynamics. So for example, if I want to select an account, and let's say that I brought over a column that was my calendar year 2018 revenue. What I can do is color code all of the dots on the map by that column that's coming in through my fetch XML call. And it pulls in the data and color codes it. Once it's color coded, you can interact with the legend, so you can turn data on and off. You can also use a second column to classify by as well. So let's say I wanted to look at number of batteries sold here. I could drive the shape of the symbol based on the second column. Okay. All right, so from here, what we're able to do is then either upload additional data, so you can upload your territories, you can upload additional data sets via Excel. So you're able to upload and download data from the application once it's in EasyTerritory. You can also save projects that you're working on. So the first project that I'm going to show you is a project that has been saved that is a map of all of our work orders and accounts, as well as our tech locations overlaid. So this data, again, is coming out of Dynamics in real time. And what we have on the map are our work orders, which are coming out of the work order entity. We have our account locations, which are coming out of the account entity, our tech locations, which are coming out of the contact entity. Again, I can change the color of this information so that it is more readable. I can also drill down into the map and see details. So for example, if I wanted to look at a work order here and make the work orders a triangle of 20 point size, I can do that. Okay, from here, what we can do is actually click on these records and see the details of them. So for example, I've got 3 work orders at this location, 1 scheduled, 2 are unscheduled. I can drill down into another one and see that this is a work order for an oil restocking. So if you can imagine being in a call center and having 2 screens up where you have Dynamics and the schedule board on the right-hand side and EasyTerritory on the left-hand side, this can be a really good overview of all of the work orders and all of the tech locations on an interactive map so that you can see them. You can also use our tool to create travel time rings. So we can create a travel time ring to see a distance, or either to see a distance or a travel time in minutes. So for example, when I click on this work order location, if I want to say, okay, do I have any techs that are within, we'll say, a 20-minute travel time, driving in traffic? And we can see based on this travel time ring that we do have a tech location. And because this color is teal here, that they are available. So you can select the details and see that this is Wilson Chu and that his status is available. So what you might do from there is go from the work order and drill down back into Dynamics by clicking on the hyperlink. It will drill down back into Dynamics and open up the work order. So then you can open up the work order and assign it to Wilson Chu if you'd like. Okay. So the next thing that we'll talk about is doing territory management with the application. So let me just jump back to the slide deck. On the last call, we talked a bit about using EasyTerritory to build out territories and then how to assign territories to accounts or to leads based on either a zip code or a postal code, or doing it spatially. So today we're going to focus on the postal code entity that ships out of the box with field service. There's some really good things about that postal code entity that we'll talk through. With the postal code, or with EasyTerritory, we provide a master list of all US zip codes. We keep it up to date quarterly. And it's got about 40,000 records in it, and it includes latitude, longitude, state, city. If it's a special zip code, like a building that's its own zip code, or a mail sorting facility, or a post office box. So we provide that information to load into the out-of-the-box postal code entity that doesn't have any data in it by default. We also have postal code data available for other parts of the world as well. So we provide it for in Latin America, countries like Mexico. We have it in North America for Canada, the US, and then for parts of Europe. So the postal code data that you can load into Dynamics has a really big benefit in the fact that underlying, it automatically creates the relationship to territory and to accounts, which is really nice because as soon as you set a territory on the postal code, it's going to cascade down to all the accounts that have that postal code. And just to show an example of that, I'll jump back into Dynamics. So in the Field Service Hub, we'll look at the postal codes. And what we have here in Dynamics is the master list of postal codes that we've imported through the spreadsheet that EasyTerritory provides that can be downloaded from the EasyTerritory application. I've imported it into Dynamics, and I've already assigned it to some territories. Now, I'm just going to find one of my Texas field service territories here. We'll look at Field Service Texas 0, which is a territory. And we have the details of this, including the zip code, as well as the service territory that's been set on it. Also has some additional roll-up information that I'm including here in this entity as well. I'm going to go into some more detail about that in just a moment. But the field service territory here are defined and kept in the territory entity. So in this example, let me just pull up some of the field service territories. So in this example, we're using the out-of-the-box territory entity. We are combining different types of territories. We have our service territories and we have our sales territories. So if you joined us for the first webinar, we really built out the sales territories that our leads and opportunities and accounts use. But we also have set up, in this example, all of our service territories. So to build out the territories in EasyTerritory, what we do is we can start with a new blank project. And in this case, I've already built out a project. So we built out a project called Service Territories. And on the map, we have all of our field service territories as well as all of our account locations. I'm going to turn that off for just a moment. Now, with the application, you can either import a list of territories and zip codes, or you can use the tool to manually draw territories. So I've already imported a big list of my zip codes, and they're drawn on the map. I can also use the drawing tools to draw a territory. So for example, if we wanted to create a territory around Oklahoma City, we can just use the tools to lasso an area, query all of the underlying zip codes, click Make Territory, and then we can give this a new name. We'll call this Field Service OK1. Click OK. And it's going to build out the territory in the EasyTerritory application. So in this example, I've already done this for all of my Texas territories. Once I've done this for the Texas territories, using our export button, you can get a list of all of those territories back out to synchronize and import into Dynamics. Now, once I've done that, what we are capable of doing is then aligning all of the zip code to territory alignments. Now, we do that through a custom workflow plugin that we provide out of the box. And that custom workflow plugin actually sets the assignment of a territory on our postal code record. So that workflow plugin can be used to either initially set a territory on a postal code record, or if a territory changes for a postal code record, it can actually do that update. Okay. So Rick, I'm not hearing much out of you. I'm wondering if your audio is having a little bit of an issue there. I think I might have Rick muted. Let me see if I can deal with that. Sorry. Rick, I'm not sure how I got you muted there, but I apologize about that.
I was talking away there anyhow. I got a question. Earlier on, you talked about, you have the U.S. zip codes already loaded, and we've got a couple of Canadians and some Europeans on the session today. What about their postal code sets? Are they available?
We do have the Canadian FSA boundaries, which are the first four parts of the Canadian postal code, as well as postal code data for a number of countries in Europe, the UK, France, Switzerland, Germany, Italy, just to name a few. Okay, great. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions there, Rick? Sorry to have you muted there.
The other question too is, if a customer has, Dynamics 365 and field service up and running, the integration to EasyTerritory, how does that happen?
Yeah, so they already have field service implemented, and how do you add EasyTerritory on at that point?
Yes, that was one of the questions that popped up.
Sure. So to install EasyTerritory, you really just need to get the EasyTerritory managed solution either from us or from AppSource. Once you get that and install that into your Dynamics environment, will then provision an instance of EasyTerritory for you. And then the only thing that you'll need to do there is set a couple of configuration settings, just basically to tell the settings in the managed solution where the EasyTerritory endpoint is. Once you do that, if your data is already geocoded, then you can simply just start building advanced find views and mapping those records. If your data is not already geocoded, we do have a workflow plugin that can geocode records either as they're created or in bulk. And so that would be really the next step, is to get the data that you want to show on the map, get that data geocoded. And then finally, to set it up with field service, you would need to make some decisions. For example, if you're already using the postal code entity out of the box, and you've already got it populated with some postal code data, what you would want to do is you'll want to add our latitude and longitude if you don't have that information already, as well as it would be beneficial to add our state and address information and building type. For example, building type H is a high rise in Texas there. So you'll want to update your postal code data if you already have some postal code data in Dynamics. The final step would be to, within EasyTerritory, to build out the representation of your field service territories in the map. And so to do that, you would simply either manually draw them or upload a list of zip codes and corresponding territory names through our upload dialog. And so that will upload that data and build out the territories. So finally, sorry, Rick, do I have you muted again? Rick, I'm not sure why it's muting you by default here. I apologize. Let me see if I can.
I think it's a technical difficulty.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so I'll just keep an eye out for that. But once you build out your territories, really the last step of integration is to create the territory records in Dynamics. So creating the territory records in Dynamics, you would use the same territory name that you have in EasyTerritory, and then you would set the identifier that's automatically generated in EasyTerritory. This identifier is really used for a lookup. And really the main reason there is that if you happen to have some territories that are named the same, then it deals with that effectively by using an identifier there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next part of this would be to look at once you build out your territories and you have that information. I'm going to jump back into Dynamics here. Once you have these territories built out and you have your postal codes populated, what you can do from here is start to, as your system's populated with the cases, you can then use that to set a customer. So for example, I have a case here for a battery restocking, and my customer is dealer 2750. If I click on this dealer location, we'll open up the dealer record, which is really just the account record. And you can see here that we have a territory. Now the territory that's assigned here is the sales territory. But if we click on field service, we have the field service territory set. Now both of those territories reside in the territory entity in Dynamics, but there's a flag on each one that says whether it's a service or a sales territory, and it gets set appropriately here. Okay, so once that's created and you have your territory assigned on the account, or on the account, that then propagates down to our case record. So let's just say that I wanted to turn this case record into a work order. I can simply click the little ellipses, choose work order, and that's going to bring up some work order details here. I already have a work order for this one. Let me just jump back and find one that I don't. Okay, So then we can create a new work order here. And it's going to auto-populate some of the details here. We might have to set a new work order type and then a price list. You can set all of this by default. I just don't have it set to do that. Okay, so what it's going to do once it saves that work order, you can then look at the work order record. And on the work order record, it has all of the details. But if we click on book, it's going to bring up the resource scheduler. And once this loads, what you'll see in the resource scheduler is it automatically applies that territory as one of the filter criteria for your resources. Schedule board's taking just a second to load here. Okay. All right. So the territory that's set here is territory Texas 14. So because we're using that out-of-the-box postal code entity and we're assigning territories to the postal codes, and because we have a postal code on our account location, it's automatically inheriting that so that it sets that as a filter criteria. Now, it just so happens in my demo instance for this particular one that I happen to drill down on, I don't have any resources assigned to territory 14. But if I were to go into my bookable resources and schedule and add resources to territory 14, those would automatically be filtered in my schedule board list there. So this is a nice way to be able to segment all of your bookable resources by geography so that it filters them down nicely so that you're not having a master list of all of your bookable resources. If you have hundreds of those, that would be a really big list to try to work your way through.
Well, when I look at this stuff, Benton, and a lot of companies are trying to do this now, even in spreadsheets. Like the time savings alone, when it's kind of going through these exercises, there's a huge ROI to this.
Yep, you're absolutely right, Rick. So definitely, in our minds, one of the biggest missing pieces to scheduling and territory management and service call planning has to do with the spatial location of everything. Your calls are going to have a location, your texts are going to be at a certain location at a certain time, or they're going to be driving. You're going to have equipment or parts at a warehouse at a location. So being able to bring those all into a map that you can see visually and start to make decisions on are a huge time savings. Also, the travel time analysis, like I showed a bit earlier, where you're creating travel time rings, that really comes in, is really a good feature that comes into play when you might have high SLA volumes that you need to try to meet, so that you can use the tool to quickly see, hey, from this case location or from this work order location, do I have an asset that's 20 minutes away or 30 minutes away?
I was at a field service workshop last year, and they were talking about the average field service call can be anywhere from $200 to $600. So, just that time savings ring that you can create there for most organizations would have a considerable benefit to, getting that extra call in per day, or, realigning calls so they just flow better.
That's right. I mean, one thing that a lot of organizations have told us is that they are missing SLAs, and that costs them money because they have contracts signed for certain SLA times. So being able to efficiently optimize your dispatch and be able to make decisions on the fly with spatial information is really a key thing. One of the big things that we're really excited about that's coming down the pike from Microsoft, that was actually released this fall, is that the field service mobile solution now has geolocation tracking. And so what that means, and let me just open up that map and talk briefly about what that means. What that means is that the field service mobile application is now going to be reporting back at a defined frequency that can be defined in the mobile application development tool, the Woodford tool. You're able to define what the time intervals between updates are going to be, and it will push that information back into Dynamics so that you can set that on the bookable resource record, and then it will update that location. So what EasyTerritory supports is the ability to refresh this map in real time. So this goes back to the notion of having dual monitors for your dispatchers. So they can have a monitor pulled up on the left-hand side where they see all of the trucks. They can get a refresh every 30 seconds or minute or whatever interval it's set at, so that you can see the new status update. So not only will that update the truck's location on the map, but it will also update the status on the map, because really what EasyTerritory is doing under the hood is just making an updated fetch XML call back to Dynamics to get the latest information.
Very nice.
All right, so next I'll transition into talking about some capacity planning. So capacity planning is another big ROI for organizations, and that is being able to look at historic data, whether that's work order data or information you might be storing on the accounts, or information that you might have in the case entity, and being able to look at that historic information to determine what your future resource allocation might look like. And in this example, what I'm doing is I'm pulling in postal code data from Dynamics, and it's coming straight out of that postal code entity that we've been talking about. Let me just jump back into the postal code entity just to recap what I mean here. So what we have on in the postal code entity is some roll-up fields. So we've got some roll-up calculated fields here. They're just calculating information based on total number of accounts or total revenue for all of the accounts that were in this territory, or in this zip code, excuse me. Total number of batteries sold in this zip code. And the reason that I'm doing this is because a lot of organizations might have hundreds of thousands or even millions of service calls over a period of time. And that information is all in Dynamics or in their ERP system, and they want to be able to efficiently get that information in the map so that you can use EasyTerritory's aggregation capabilities to look at statistics on how things are balanced. So one of the best ways to do that, instead of pulling in 300,000 work orders over the past 2 years, would be to pull in data aggregated by postal code. So in this example, we've aggregated by postal code here. And because we have the latitude and longitude for the postal codes that I mentioned that we supply with our postal code data set, we're able to map those as points on the map, just like we would an account location. So these are just really these dots on the map. These are just the center points of the postal code. So if I turn on our postal code data set here, you'll see that all the dots here just fall right in the center. So what we have the ability to do here is to toggle things on and off. So if we were to look at, let's see here, if we were to look at total number of batteries sold and total work orders, that total number of zip codes that had 231 work orders or more, we can slowly start toggling that data on and off. Now, where that comes into play for capacity planning is being able to take a current territory, and I'm just going to choose a few around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm going to choose territory 16, 5, and 13. So I'm going to turn on just territories 13, 16, and 5. Okay. So let's say that I look at territories 13, 16, and 5, and I see the details, and there's one little setting that I didn't have quite configured here. Let me just configure this really quickly. I'm going to do this. I'll look at total number of batteries sold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at across territories 13, 16, and 5, that there's a mix of total number of accounts, there's a mix of total number of batteries sold, and there's a total mix of work orders. We can see that number 5 is had 3,500 work orders in the past year, and territory 13 had 474. So what we can do from here, let's say that we knew that in total that 5,500 records should really be serviced by about 4 techs. So we want to split this up, taking it from 3 territories to 4. We can click our Realign button, and our Realign button will take us through a wizard that will allow us to go up in the number of territories. And then EasyTerritory will try to balance on one of these. So in this case, I want to balance on total number of work orders. Click OK. And it's going to analyze these 3 territories and all of the total aggregated data across all of the zip codes. And then it's going to give an output of what it recommends your 4 new territories be. All right, let me turn off the old one so it doesn't look like a jumbled mess here. All right, so now we have 4 territories defined here.
Very nice.
2, 3, 4. And then if we want to see the breakdown of them, we can click the stats panel here, and you can see that we have roughly 1,300 work orders, 1,380 work orders in each new territory there. And then each territory has zip codes that it is used to define it. So what the next logical step would be here would be to synchronize the new territories with your postal code entity in Dynamics. And again, the beauty of using the out-of-the-box postal code entity with Dynamics is it will automatically update all of the service territories on the related accounts, on the related work orders, on the related cases. And it does that through just cascading relationships there between those. Does that all make sense? Yep.
Ben, so, once you start to build your territory maps like this, you can physically go and realign them, can't you?
Yes, absolutely. So if you wanted to, let's just say you wanted to manually do some realigning, what you can do is just use either the identify mode to just select zip codes. So here I just go into identify mode and just start clicking on zip codes out on the map. And what it's going to do, it's going to select these zip codes. And as it's selecting the zip codes, it's adding them to my results set down below. And then here I can click my stats panel. And if I look at my stats panel, it's going to show me, total number of batteries sold. So I had one that had a bunch of batteries and a bunch of work orders in it, and then the rest of them didn't have any. But let's say that I wanted to now move these 6 zip codes from this territory, which is territory 13, to territory 5. We just click make territory. It's going to ask to realign from territory 13, move into territory 5, and it will automatically realign those.
Excellent. Very good.
And then to get those changes saved and synchronized within Dynamics, you would simply save the project. And this is my capacity planning project. So if this is a derivative project from the master project, you would just export this data out of this project, bring it into your master project. It automatically reconciles the territories, and you can save that project. It will in turn save that data and update the postal code data within Dynamics. And if you have additional territories, it will reconcile those as well. All right. So the next thing related to service territories that I wanted to talk about and show is really related to IoT. So, as Microsoft continues to develop out their IoT capabilities, including IoT Central and IoT Views and Hub that is available as part of Dynamics, we see some interesting possibilities there as far as geospatial goes. So
we're talking about the Internet of Things and connected devices.
That's exactly right.
Yes,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So what we're going to look at here is so in Dynamics you can have IoT alerts. IoT alerts can then be turned into cases and work orders. So if there's some level of automation that you can do there, you can do that. But with your IoT alerts, they can be attached to assets, and assets can be mapped. So we have some IoT alert examples here. But what I've done is I've created a map that pulls in IoT alert data from Dynamics. We're pulling in a couple things here. This one is IoT alert here on top of my customer asset. So for example, if I click on this detail, that we can see here that there's an IoT alert on the map, and it's a vending machine kiosk. It looks like there's some high pressure at the Advanta A building, which is Microsoft HQ for Dynamics. And you can see the details here that it's in progress, a work order has been created. You can also jump back into either Dynamics by clicking this Dynamics record, or you can jump into IoT Central by clicking on the link there, and that will take you into IoT Central where it's giving you the details of that particular device. One of the other kind of demos or mashups that we have done, well, as I'm zooming the map.
Just before you go on, Benton, talk a little bit about what IoT Central is.
Yep. So IoT Central is an online service from Microsoft. It's in Azure that you can essentially create and connect all of your devices into dashboards that have pretty robust alerting and reporting in real time. So as that information is being fed, you're able to see the details of the device and the metrics and the different metrics that the device supports. You can see that information here on the bar graph or pie chart or calendar, and so you can look at analytics and other information like that. And so this is a good way to see real-time information about the device. And then adding Dynamics onto that is a way to track if a device has an issue, then it can create a record in Dynamics that could then create a work order to have a technician come out and fix it.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
And then, so our value proposition or our value add to that is that you can, just like anything in Dynamics that we can map, you can map your IoT device locations, you can map the alerts on top of them. What's neat is that if you were to scroll the map out to look at the entire US, you can see the different dots here out on the map. So if you had devices throughout the US or throughout the world, you could see those plotted on the map there. Okay. The last thing that I'll show here is just a mashup with a floor plan. So this is something that has sparked some interest, which is being able to overlay an actual floor plan with with your IoT device data. So for example, this is the JW Marriott in Palm Springs, where they hold the field service conference every year. So having the floor plan and showing elevator locations here, for example, and being able to see the details here, and then being able to hyperlink back into them. All right. So Rick, as a transition back into the slide deck, any other questions or comments there?
No, I think this is a great help. Maybe we should spend some time as well. You've got a few more slides that you want to show, but make sure we talk a little bit about what you're going to cover in our next retail session.
Yep. So in the retail session, we're going to drill down into dynamics for retail and talk a bit more about the opportunities around franchise boundary management. And there's really two things with franchise boundary management that come into play. Number one is the overlay of all of your retail or outlet locations on top of a franchise map and creating things like executive dashboards for being able to see all of the retail locations, how they're performing, being able to color code those, but then also being able to use the application to define these territories and how to manage and maintain those. Also looking at things like area of protection, how to define and maintain those, as well as looking at overlaying demographic information. That seems to be a big one that oftentimes comes up with retail.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a little bit now. I see you have AppSource up on the screen. So if somebody wants to test drive EasyTerritory, what do they need to do?
Yep. So there's really two ways to get started. You can either go to AppSource and download the our managed solution from AppSource. If you do that, there'll be a prompt in there where you'll just register, and it will really trigger the provisioning of the EasyTerritory instance for you. We'll then reach out and schedule a time to help you do the initial setup. It's really just a couple simple steps, but we like to just work with customers just to better understand their use cases, make sure that we get them going on the right track on how to get started with the application. If you don't have Dynamics yet, or if you just want to reach out to us directly, you can just go to our website, and then there's a button in the top left corner just to register for a trial or demo. And so you just click on that button, you can enter in your information, and if you want to get started with the trial, we're more than happy to provision an instance for you.
Okay.
So just look at the roadmap, sort of what's ahead for us. Some of the things that we're looking at in 2019 are a connector for Power BI, and that is EasyTerritory being a data source provider for data that you can bring into Power BI. So you might have seen where I'm pulling up the stats panel and showing a breakdown of all of the territories and total number of batteries sold within the territories, or total number of batteries sold by zip code. So allowing EasyTerritory to be a data source that you can use to bring into Power BI. The other thing is a map widget for Power BI that would basically turn Power BI into a data source for EasyTerritory. Now, for a lot of people on the call, that might be a little bit overkill, since we can read out of Dynamics directly. But in some cases, it might be beneficial if you're pulling data from other sources and wanting to go through Power BI first to do that. And then finally, one of the big things that we're looking at for 2019 are predictive territory analytics. So right now, when we go through a territory analysis and realignment project, a lot of it is either running those scenarios by running that realign operation in Wizard that I showed, or by manually selecting zip codes and moving them from one territory to another. But one of the big things on our roadmap for 2019 is looking at having a way for EasyTerritory to really predict and suggest territory changes that would not be really user initiated. And what I mean by that is let's say that you had 20 new accounts pop up in an area, and now a territory is really overloaded. Having EasyTerritory suggest an account or a territory realignment there for you. So there's some of the things on our roadmap, and certainly if there's any other ideas or use cases that you're not sure if EasyTerritory does or not, we just invite you to contact us to talk through those, and we can certainly go through those requirements with you and to better understand if it's something that we might be able to help you out when it comes to mapping and geospatial.
So Benton, we've got a couple of questions about pricing. Can you just touch on pricing?
Sure, yeah. So the pricing is priced based on the number of users, and there's really two flavors of our product. There's our enterprise pricing and our standard edition pricing. What we've been reviewing today that integrates with Dynamics is our enterprise version. And there's a platform fee of $7,400 that gets you your first seat. So we have some organizations that they only have one user that manages all of their sales territories, so they only need one seat of EasyTerritory. But then we have some organizations that want to not only roll out maps to all of their sales managers to be able to look at their territories, but they also want to be able to put maps in the hands of their salespeople. So in that example, let's say that you had 20 users that were your sales management, and then you had 150 users that were your salespeople that you wanted to give maps. You can use the price calculator on our website to kind of play around, but it is licensed per seat. So you have to be a licensed user to use the application or to open up a map. And then the price per user above that initial platform fee really varies in the total number of full access and mobile only seats that you have.
And what versions of Dynamics do you currently support?
We currently support back to 2011. There are some limitations with the 2011 support that we have, but we're 2011 through current.
Okay, excellent. Very good.
And here's the free trial button that I was mentioning a little bit earlier. If you're interested in a demo, or more of a consulting session for us to talk through some of the scenarios, you can just simply register on our website, just fill out a little bit of information. We'll get an automated email and then find a good time to talk through your requirements in more detail.
And I believe you told me before that this pricing includes your initial consulting.
It does. The pricing and licensing does include 16 hours of support. That's generally enough to help an organization get EasyTerritory integrated and into production, as well as provide some time for us to support you with web-based administrative and end-user training.
Okay, fantastic.
So, well, if there are any more questions, be happy to answer those. Otherwise, I really appreciate everybody's time today. And as we mentioned, if you would like to do a trial or talk about requirements in more detail, please feel free to fill out that registration form on our website or just give me an email directly.
Okay, thank you, Benton. And just remind everybody, this will be, we have recorded this session, and we'll be posting it in the next few days on the EasyTerritory website. And we've got the retail session coming up April 2nd, I believe.
That's correct. April 2nd, 2 o'clock, and April 2nd should be on a Tuesday.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Much appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.